Okay, so welcome to this video series. As we start, I'm just basically trying to summarize everything that we'll be doing in the training manual, or everything that is in the training manual for our unit strategic management. And I'll just break these videos down into bits of 15 minutes each, so that they can be a bit manageable for you. And I'll just talk about the various issues that we need to cover in the unit. Again, this is a repetition for those people that were in the classes, but since I might be using these videos for future references, I'll just start from scratch, and I'll talk about several things. The first thing that I will talk about is what is strategy. That is the first thing that I'll talk about. Two, the second thing is how does strategy come about, and we'll use modeling example. And the third thing that I'll talk about is the approaches that we have in strategy. Now I'll start with the model first. So we say that if there was something that can be able to visualize or summarize everything about strategy, is we always begin with a problem or an issue or a goal, and this problem we come up with a model of it over here. And once we have the model of the problem, it gives us the strategy on this section over here. What do we mean? Let me pick example number one that we used last time, and I'll pick the first example is terrorism. The second example is drugs use. Let's start with terrorism. Now we have a problem where there are so many terror groups. We have an example of Al-Shabaab, we have Al-Qaeda, we have ISIS, and so forth and so forth. And anytime these groups are making an attack, it is meant to strike fear and terror at the heart of the victims. Now if we look at the various countries across the world and how they react to the problem of terrorism, we can be able to see what this whole systemic thing over here works. Now this is what I mean by that. The first step is you have a problem, the one that we have over here of terrorism. The second thing is you need to come up with assumptions that define your model. Now under the assumptions bit over here, I'm trying to explain the problem as best as I can, so that I say, given this being the model and the assumptions of our model, the right strategy should be this. Now if we look at terrorism, the strategy over here that USA has decided is to go to war, and they call it war on terror, and they go to countries like Iraq and Afghanistan and so forth, because they believe these are the axis of evil in terms of terrorism. That's where most of the terrorists find their resources and training and so forth. Now if that is correct, then the more we fight this war, the less we should have the problem. But that is not the case, and the reason is that the assumptions are not correct about this problem over here, and the model is broken. And this is what I mean. We said last time that the following are the odds of dying, and we have suicide over here. It's 1 in 288. We have cancer over here, 1:7. We have heart disease, 1:6. We have car accident, 1:107. We even have COVID. We have 1:679. Now the whole thing gets off balance when we look at the odds. When we're thinking about terrorism, we say the odds of dying from a terror attack is 1:30 million, and the probability that a foreigner will cause death on soil, it will be 1 into 44 million. Now, to give you perspective, the probability that you'll be hit by lightning is 1:67 million. So you can clearly see that the odds of this thing happening is very, very slim, but we have gone to war already. Now, what is the other problem? The assumptions that are wrong about this model. The other thing is we are not dealing with a conventional soldier. A conventional soldier is the one who is deterred by death. In other words, he is afraid of dying. He's doing everything to make sure he does not die. This is a conventional soldier. But when you go to Al-Shabaab, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda and all those people, you find that death to them is martyrdom, and it is something that they crave for because it gives them glory in the life that comes. And if we create martyrdom as a movement over here, we can see that it creates a recruitment drive for them. It does not really deter them from stopping. It only means that the more the martyrs, the more we get the recruits. So you're not dealing with a conventional soldier. The other thing that this model gets wrong is that we are not fighting this war using guns and using bullets and using explosives. This is basically a doctrinal war, because it is basically a certain sect of the Muslim religion that believe that jihad is fought this way. That's the first thing. And the enemy of the Muslim is westernization, and westernization, various countries are listed there. That is how basically they look at it. Now, therefore, if we pick this problem over here and we say we have terrorism on one end and we want to stop it, war will not work, because first of all, the probability is wrong. The probabilities of, if anything, we should focus on cancer and heart disease, because 1 in 6, 1 in 7. In retrospect, let me give perspective to what I said. Chances are high that you're likely to die of cancer, of heart disease, of a car accident, and even COVID and suicide before you get shot by a terrorist. That is what basically it means. Therefore, if we look further at the expense that this industry has created, let's look at the money that we spend for suicide, $61 million, heart disease, 216 billion, cancer, 21 billion. Car accident costs the economy about 75 billion. But when we go to the money that we have spent or fighting terror globally, this accounts for $2.16 trillion. This is clearly an overreaction of sorts. We are basically overreacting to a very minute problem. Does it mean we do nothing? No. The reason is that cancer, heart, car accidents, and so forth are not intentional causes of death. That's the only reason that we should be able to do something. So, back to the issue that I was talking about. You have a problem, you create a model of the problem with good assumptions, then you come up with a strategy. And personally, I think that fighting this thing at the level of doctrine is where we are likely to win this war, not guns and bullets. Now, we go to the second problem, which is drugs. And drugs over here, we basically talking about banned substances ranging from weed or marijuana. We have cocaine, we have heroin, and we have all those banned substances. Now, to give an example of how this thing is dealt with across the board, we have country USA, we have country Philippines over here, and we have country Portugal. Now, the assumptions of USA over here is that this is mainly a supply problem. Therefore, let us do everything to cut off the supply. Again, at the center of United States model over here, it is a supply problem. So we deal with the cartels, we deal with the farmers, we come up with every strategy to make sure the supply side does not meet that goal of supplying the drug. That is the first thing that they will do. Now, you go to the Philippines, the assumption is it is both a supply problem and a demand problem. And when Philip Duterte was coming into power, he said, we are going to kill each drug pusher and each drug user. Now, this was true. It was both demand and supply side problem. But doing this extrajudicial killings created what you call a humanitarian crisis. Now, we go to another country called Portugal, and they said, we cannot fight this thing. This is a menace that will always be there, whether we like it or not. Therefore, let us just focus on creating a world-class rehabilitation center. There will always be supply, there will always be demand. Let us create a good rehab center, and then we decriminalize the usage of it. If you're caught supplying the drugs, you will be indeed arrested and incarcerated. But when it comes to users, you will not. If you're just using this for yourself, you will not be arrested. That's decriminalization. Now, the reason why Portugal is a benchmark case of something that works is that at the base of their model is the assumption that any person using these drugs will get tired at some point and will want to stop and seek help. And whenever they want to seek help, they will go to rehab. They will not be afraid of being arrested. They will not be afraid of that. Therefore, giving that open conversation to the problem has helped Portugal reduce their drug usage significantly. So we can see that on this side over here, when we look at USA, by dealing with the supply side over here, the drug problem is not going down. By dealing with the supply and demand side over here, the drug problem is not going down. But for Portugal, by ignoring the whole model of supply side and so forth and creating a rehab system for the users, the drug use has significantly gone down. Now, what does this go to show? That every problem that an organization will face requires a model, and this model needs to have the correct assumptions, because these assumptions are the ones that will inform the strategy that you are going to come up with. I'll repeat. The model we will have, yes, we want to increase sales, we want to have better customer service, we want to increase our market share and so forth. We need to come up with a model that defines the problem, and this in terms of the assumptions under it. Now, once we have the assumptions correct, we can get the strategy part of it right. Now, this is basically what we'll be doing in strategic management. Come up with a problem, think of the assumptions underlying that problem and create a model out of it, then come up with a strategy. Therefore, in retrospect, a strategy can be called a plan, a ploy, a pattern, a position, or a perspective. It is a plan because it is a predetermined course of action. It is a ploy in the sense that I am doing something to hoodwink my opponent to act in a certain way. It is a pattern because it is a repeated way of doing things. It is a position because of what we have achieved so far in terms of competitive edge. It is a perspective because it is our way of looking at things, and this is according to Henry Mintzberg. I'll repeat. It is a plan because it is a predetermined course of action. It is a ploy because it is something I'm doing to hoodwink my opponent to behave in a certain way. It is a pattern because it is something I keep repeating and repeating and repeating. It is a position because it refers to what we have achieved so far in terms of our competitive edge. It is also a perspective because it is a way of looking at things. That's it for part A of the video. Let us go to part B. Thank you.